3 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, starting with the music mogul's former assistant.
Once a mere shadow by the side of the towering giant Sean Diddy Combs for 2 decades, how did Capricorn Clark find the courage to stand up against the very monster they once revered? Making a stunning appearance in federal court, Capricorn Clark delivered a bombshell testimony, acting as a tempest that swept away lies, poised to dismantle the web of manipulation Diddy had spun over decades. Clark's testimony didn't just target what the mastermind Sean Diddy Combs had done to them over those 20 years. It also cast a piercing light on the tragedies of other souls crushed by him, like Cassie and Kid Cudi.
Testified that Sean Combs at one point threatened to kill Kid Cudi after finding out that he...
Will the power of Clark's testimony be enough to ignite the flames of justice, pushing Diddy deeper into a death sentence? Or will it, like so many other cries for help, fade away, drown in the labyrinth of power that Diddy has crafted over decades?
Capricorn Clark is expected to take the stand. She will become the 3rd former assistant to testify as a government witness against him.
In the 3rd week of Sean Diddy Combs' trial, the federal courtroom was steeped in a tense atmosphere as if a raging storm was about to sweep through. And indeed, it did. Capricorn Clark arrived, bringing evidence that roared like a tempest, tearing through every lie. Stepping up to the stand, Capricorn Clark fixed a resolute gaze on Sean Diddy Combs, the man who had once been her boss, but also the nightmare of her life. With a trembling voice, Capricorn Clark began her testimony before the court.
I started working for Sean Combs in 2002, thinking that working for a music icon would be the opportunity to change my life, but I was wrong. What I witnessed and experienced was a nightmare. Sean Combs wasn't just a boss, he was a monster.
At this point, Capricorn Clark paused, taking a deep breath. Her gaze swept across the courtroom before locking on to Diddy. He was still staring at her, his narrowed eyes burning with a ferocious intensity, as if trying to intimidate her even as she stood at the witness stand. Those eyes, that look, were the very ones Clark had seen in countless nightmares every night over the 20 years she spent by his side. Steeling herself, Clark refused to falter under the menacing glare of the monster who had haunted her life. She pressed on with her testimony, her voice growing stronger. I'm here today to speak the truth, not just of myself, but for Cassie Ventura, my dearest friend, and for everyone Sean Combs has hurt. He thought he could control everything with money and power. But today, I'm here to show him that everything he's so proud of comes second to justice.
Start with the most horrific night of my life, December 12, 2011, when Sean found out that his girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, was dating the rapper Kid Cudi.
11 in Los Angeles is when she says she was forced at gunpoint into a car to go to Kid Cudi's house because Sean Combs was very...
As she began this testimony before the court, Clark tore open the pain buried deep in her heart for all to see, allowing the nightmare that night to once again envelop her mind. Clark recounted that on that night, while she was sleeping in her small Los Angeles apartment, she was startled awake around 2 a.m. by frantic pounding on her door, as if someone was trying to break it down. Thinking it was urgent, Clark rushed to open the door. But when it swung open, Sean appeared like a Grim Reaper, flanked by a bodyguard, a towering man named Uncle Paulie. Sean was holding a pistol, pointing it directly at Clark's chest. His face was flushed with rage, and he shouted, "You knew what Cassie was doing behind my back, but you kept it from me. You and she're going to pay." Clark's voice trembled with fear as she recounted the moment, tears streaming down her cheeks. She said that in that moment, Diddy's face was so terrifying it left her speechless, unable to defend herself. All she could do was comply as they forced her outside, bound her hands with plastic zip ties, and shoved her into a sleek black SUV.
Felt like my heart was about to stop beating.
Well, Capricorn Clark sobbed through the entire afternoon of crime.
Paulie was driving, with Sean in the front seat, screaming about Cassie and Kid Cudi. He said that if Cassie didn't come back to him immediately, he'd kill both of them, and I wouldn't escape either. I'd never been so terrified, but I was still lucid enough to realize that if I didn't do something, not only would I be in danger, but Cassie and Cudi would be too.
Clark said, her eyes brimming with tears. The courtroom fell silent, filled only with the sound of breathing and the stifled gasps of those present. Then Clark continued, her voice drawing everyone into the nightmare of that fateful night. In Truth 6, Clark paused, wiping away her tears, then continued with a voice full of resolve. In my panic, I secretly unlocked my phone and sent a text to Cassie. Sean's heading to Cuddy's. He's got a gun. Warn him. But before the message could send, Uncle Paulie, while driving, spotted me in the rear-view mirror. Sean immediately turned around, snatched my phone, threw it to the car floor, and glared at me with eyes that looked ready to kill. He shouted, "You think you're clever, huh? If Cuddy says a word, you and Cassie will both end up in the ground." As Clark finished, Prosecutor Mitchell stepped forward, posing a critical question. "Miss Clark, did you manage to keep any evidence from that night?" Clark nodded quickly, her voice still trembling, but now carrying a spark of hope. "I had a small recorder in my jacket pocket. I'd managed to put it on before opening the door. It was something I always carried to record meetings for Sean."
Can disappear, Cuddy won't be a problem anymore. And if she dares
Tied up in the back seat, I turned it on. I knew it was risky, but I thought if I didn't survive that night, at least there'd be evidence to make Sean pay. At that moment, Prosecutor Mitchell turned to the jury, holding up a small device. "This is a recording Miss Clark provided to us," she said, and pressed play. A faint audio clip filled the courtroom, but it was unmistakably Diddy's voice, chillingly cold. A wave of stunned whispers rippled through the courtroom. At the defendant's table, Diddy bowed his head, his hands clenched tightly, but his eyes remained icy, as if struggling to maintain his composure. Before he could steady himself, Prosecutor Mitchell pressed on. "Miss Clark, aside from the 2011 incident, were there other occasions when Mr. Combs used violence or threats against you?" Clark took a deep breath, as if summoning every ounce of courage. "In July 2004, at Bad Boy Entertainment's headquarters in New York, I went through another horrific week," she said. "After a white party in the Hamptons, Sean had borrowed 3 expensive pieces of jewelry from Jacob the jeweler. I was tasked with carrying them on a private flight to Miami Beach. But on the way to the airport, I realized the jewelry bag was gone. I called Sean, but he didn't answer. Instead, he and Uncle Paulie showed up immediately and took me to a dingy room at Bad Boy's headquarters on 40th Street. Intro 8. Clark's voice trembled as she spoke. For 5 days straight, he interrogated me repeatedly, demanding to know if I'd taken the jewelry. He said, if I didn't pass the test, I'd be thrown into the East River. I knew someone in Sean's inner circle had stolen the jewelry, but no matter what I said, they acted like they didn't hear me. I was terrified. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the jury as if pleading for them to grasp the depth of her fear. Every day in that room, I felt like I was teetering on the edge of death. Big Joe stood there, smoking, staring at me like I was just an object he could discard at any moment. Sensing the terror in Clark's recounting of her past, Prosecutor Mitchell quickly stepped forward, holding up a piece of paper for the jury. Miss Clark, is this the evidence you found related to this incident? Clark nodded. During the interrogation, I saw a note on Big Joe's desk. It detailed how one of Sean's bodyguards had taken the
for a number of reasons. One, according to the government, she is victim number one.
Jewelry to sell on the black market. I hid the note in my pocket, knowing it might save me one day. Mitchell presented the paper bearing Uncle Paulie's handwriting. Jewelry handed to Jay. Taken care of. Don't let her know. The jury exchanged stunned looks, realizing that Diddy had not only threatened Clark, but had orchestrated the incident to test her loyalty. At the defendant's table, Diddy could no longer contain himself. He shot to his feet, shouting, "She sits lying. It's all fabricated." Judge Subramanian banged the gavel, her voice stern. "Mr. Combs, sit down immediately or you will be removed from this courtroom." Diddy reluctantly sat, but his eyes burned with rage like a cornered beast. A reporter in the room noted, "Diddy looks like he's losing control, as if he knows his empire is crumbling." But was that the full extent of what Clark endured during her 20 years working alongside Diddy? No, Clark continued, her voice now stronger, as if each word was a dagger striking at Diddy's empire. In 2008, at Sean's private residence in Miami Beach, I witnessed something even more horrifying. I saw Sean beating Cassie Ventura. She was curled up in a corner of the room, a bruise on her cheek, sobbing uncontrollably. I couldn't stand it, So I told Sean I hated working there. He flew into a rage, lunged at me, shoved me down the hallway, and screamed, "Who do you think you are? No one leaves me without my permission." I fell down the stairs, but the physical bruises weren't what hurt most. It was Cassie's desperate eyes. She looked at me as if begging for help, but I was too terrified to do anything.
I once admired Sean Combs as a music icon. Who wouldn't? But that was before I saw his true self, a monster who manipulated everyone around him. I sent those messages because I was desperate. I have a child with autism who needs care, and Sean blackballed me in the music industry, making it impossible for me to find work. I had no choice but to beg him to take me back. But every day working for him was a day living in hell. He knew it, and he enjoyed watching us live in fear.
Clark locked eyes with the jury, her voice now brimming with strength. Cassie was my best friend. She was the only person I could trust in Sean's terrifying world. She told me about the beatings, about being forced to attend those horrific parties Sean called freak-offs. She wanted to leave, but Sean threatened to destroy her career, take her house, her car, everything. I tried to help her, but every time I did, Sean punished me. She paused, her gaze shifting to Cassie, who sat in the gallery, her eyes red but resolute. I'm here today for Cassie, for everyone Sean has hurt, and for myself. He can't keep getting away with this. Prosecutor Mitchell pressed on, her voice sharp as a blade. Miss Clark, tell us about the relationship between Cassie Ventura and Agnello. Pressed on, his voice dripping with sarcasm. So, why did you go back to work for Mr. Combs if he was as terrifying as you claim? Was it because you wanted to be close to his power, his glamour? Clark locked eyes with Diddy, her voice ringing out like a declaration of war. I went back because I needed money to raise my child. But I never forgot what he did to me and Cassie. I'm here today to make sure he can't hurt anyone else. The gallery erupted in applause, and the judge had to bang the gavel to restore order. The jury sat in silence, their eyes fixed on Diddy. An older female juror shook her head, whispering to the person beside her, "How can someone be so cruel?" At the defendant's table, Diddy grew visibly agitated. He whispered frantically to Agnello and, in a moment of lost control, leapt to his feet once more, shouting, "You saw no lion. I didn't do anything wrong." Judge Sobermanian banged the gavel, her voice stern. "Mr. Combs, this is my final warning. Sit down now." Diddy sat, but his eyes blazed with fury like a cornered animal. To bolster Clark's testimony, Cassie Ventura took the witness stand. She wore a simple white dress, but her eyes burned with determination, as if she had been waiting for this moment for years. "I started dating Sean.
If Clark opens her mouth, make sure she disappears. I won't let anyone destroy me,"
she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I thought he would help me build my music career. Instead, he controlled every aspect of my life. He beat me, forced me to attend parties I didn't want to, things he called freak-offs. He told me if I left, I'd lose everything, my career, my home, my car, everything. I felt like a prisoner in my own life." Cassie corroborated Clark's account of the 2011 kidnapping. "Capricorn saved me and Scott that night," she said, looking at Clark with grateful eyes. "She sent me a warning text, and thankfully, Scott wasn't there. Beyond that, Capricorn helped us so much. Without her, I don't know what would have happened." She paused, wiping away tears, but continued with a stronger voice. "Capricorn was the only one brave enough to stand up to Sean. She gave me the strength to stand here today and tell the truth." As the trial neared its close, the story of Capricorn Clark and Cassie Ventura is not just a chapter in the trial of the century against Sean Diddy Combs. It is a powerful testament to the strength of courage, solidarity, and the resolve to stand up against injustice, no matter the cost. Capricorn, a woman who once lived in the shadows of intimidation and manipulation, chose the hardest path, confronting a powerhouse like Diddy, who was not only her boss but a towering icon of an entire industry. She knew that testifying could cost her safety, reputation, and even her life. Yet she chose to speak the truth, not just for herself, but for Cassie Ventura, her dear friend trapped in a toxic relationship for over a decade, and for all those Diddy had harmed. Clark's actions remind us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to push through it to do what is right. As for Cassie, though she was shackled in a toxic relationship for over a decade, living like a prisoner in her own life, manipulated, threatened, and stripped of her voice, Clark's presence in her life sparked a glimmer of hope. And it was a bond between these two women that gave them the strength to step onto the witness stand, face the man who had terrorized them, and speak the darkest moments. A helping hand, a word of encouragement, or a single act of bravery can change everything. But the lesson from Capricorn and Cassie goes beyond courage and friendship. It serves as a reminder that no amount of power can forever conceal the truth. Sean Combs, with his glittering music empire, used money, influence, and threats to control those around him. He believed he was untouchable, that no one would dare challenge him. But Clark and Cassie proved otherwise. The truth, when spoken by those brave enough to stand up, can shake even the most impregnable empires. They showed us that no matter how small or powerless you feel, your voice has power. A frantic text message, a hidden note, or a courtroom testimony, seemingly small acts, can spark monumental change. If you or someone you know is suffering from abuse, mistreatment, or injustice, remember that you are not alone. There are organizations, communities, and people ready to listen, support, and fight alongside you. Sometimes, the first step is as simple as sharing your story with a trusted friend, reaching out to a hotline, or connecting with groups that support victims of violence and abuse of power. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be a phone call, a conversation, or even a quiet decision to stop staying silent. Capricorn Clark did this when she kept evidence against Diddy, knowing it could make her a target. Cassie Ventura did this when she took the stand, facing Diddy's glare and recounting years of horror. And I believe you can do it too, in your own way. Trust in your own strength, and don't let fear stop you from seeking justice. Capricorn Clark has walked away, but the trials of Sean Diddy Combs are far from over. Will this story truly come to an end? Will Diddy face the punishment he deserves? Or will his hidden